right now in the political sphere, you hear a lot of talk about two Americas. And without getting into the politics of that, there's just this idea that there are at least two very different experiences. One where everything is growing and there's opportunity, and one where there's not as much. And I think in a similar, not same, but similar way, the communities that I serve point to two different sides of the church in Raleigh, right? So we're all familiar with the cathedral and with the experience around the triangle, where everything's booming and the numbers are up, people are moving in, churches are getting bigger and bigger, and that's great, and it's a blessing, and we should rejoice in that. And there are also parts of North Carolina where that's not true, where the population is not growing, where the church maybe has been a small but steady presence for years. And I think it's also good that we remember that's part of the same Church of Raleigh, that we also have these sort of two sides, one more rural, sometimes more immigrant, and one more urban, more prosperous, more growing. And the church is here to serve all of that, the whole range. And I think that's one of the things that I actually find very appealing, very attractive about our diocese, is that for all the growth that's happened, we still have our roots in rural North Carolina, in a place where there haven't been Catholics for a long time, and where we're a small minority, and where we try and serve as those before us have served whoever is here. And the Church of Raleigh, I think, is really bridging those two different experiences. One may be more visible than the other, but both of them very real and very beautiful.
So today is March 25th, Palm Sunday actually. We're going to be traveling out to a pretty rural part of North Carolina to follow Father Michael Burbeck, who's the administrator of St. Charles Borromeo Catholic Church in Ahoskie, the Mission of St. Anne in Scotland Neck, and the Parish of Holy Trinity in Williamston, North Carolina. So 3 churches in 3 different counties in northeastern North Carolina.
Y dirijan su atención hacia la puerta de la iglesia. Please face the rear of the church.
So I was praying one day in the cathedral, actually, in the Diocese of Arlington. I was visiting a friend there who was assigned there, and I went in the church to pray in the evening around the time that the assignments were starting to be discussed, and was just sort of asking the Lord, what do you want me to do? And it was clear as day, asked to go to Ahoskie. One of the things that I think is at the heart of priestly service is the dual commandment. Love God above all things, and then love your neighbor as yourself. And for us, that neighbor is anyone in a sense, but in a first case, our parishioners. That is part of the call, to love God, and then in a sense, love God by loving our people. And what it means to love, in the Catholic tradition, one of the ways we say that is to love is to will the good of the other, right? So to desire, to work for what is good for another person. And that's certainly something that I try and keep in the foremost of my mind. What's going to be good for the people that I'm serving? How can I help them really in the greatest possible good, which is their salvation, growth in holiness? That is, as much as there's a plan, that's the plan, is to try and grow with these communities in asking the Lord day by day, how do you want us to serve? How do you want us to be the presence of Christ and the presence of the Catholic Church in this corner of North Carolina? And how do you want each one of us to hear your voice and to follow your will more wholeheartedly day by day?
Queridos hermanos, después de habernos preparado desde el principio de la Cuaresma, con nuestra penitencia y nuestras obras de caridad,
Lord, what do you want me to do? And that is the number one desire of my heart, really, is day by day. I'm not perfect at it, but day by day, to be trying to ask the Lord, what is your will in the big things? What's your will for my life to be a priest? And all the way down to the small things. What's your will for me? How should I spend this day, this part of this day? What are you calling me to do? And for me as a priest, following that sort of golden thread of where's the Spirit leading is really critical, because there's always several different things I could do, right? I could spend more time at one community, which means less at another, or I might need to rest sometimes. There's always these trade-offs. And so what I try, anyways, not perfectly, but what I try is to stay focused on what the Lord wants me to do, trusting that if I can follow Him and His will in the big things and in the small, then He'll take care of the big picture. He'll take care of making sure that I get where He wants me to be, that the people I'm serving are served well, as long as I'm trying to do what He wants me to do. The motivation for that, a few things. One is my own sort of conversion to the Catholic faith. I love the Church, and I have found in Catholic teaching and Catholic worship meaning and life and happiness that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And so I deeply want to share that with other people. I want for all my parishioners, for anyone who would come to the Church, to come alive in Christ, to come alive with that life that comes from entering into the great adventure of loving and following God. The other motivation is my own salvation, to be honest. As a priest, I work out my salvation by serving the people in much the same way that, say, parents of a family work out their salvation in the context of marriage and caring for their children. So those two things, the desire to share the joy that I've found and also the desire to myself grow closer to Christ, which I believe happens when I serve Him as His priest.